Hi guys, welcome back to Delaware Acre. In this little video, I am making a few little snacks for both myself and the kids, and I thought maybe you'd like to see my process. I found these two half-full quart-sized mason jars in my pantry of this fancy, I think they're roasted and salted fancy mix. I get the giant thing from Costco, and I'm not sure why I get it from Costco because it takes forever to get through them. And I actually put some of these nuts in my granola recipe, that video I did with granola, just to try to use them up. And my daughter and I are the only ones who will eat them. So I figured if I put them into smaller portion containers, maybe we will use them as a snack, like grab and go. My daughter can't take mixed nuts to school, but I will munch on them at work while I'm charting. And if they're in a smaller container, we're both more likely to grab them and go, maybe split one in the car or eat one on a walk or something of that matter. And these little containers are very handy. Here I'm taking some taco mix that I made for dinner the night before. I made a big batch of it, not really a big batch, but more than what I needed for my 1 pound of ground beef. And putting it into a little tiny mason jar and saving it for the next time I make tacos. I was using store-bought packets, but I ran out, so then I decided why not just make my own taco seasoning with all of the spices that I already have. So I'm putting it into a little jar and saving it for the next time. Here I'm prepping a little station to mix up some Jello. I have to put a towel down because I have spilled the Jello mix on my countertop. These old school countertops are, I'm pretty sure they're the original countertops, about 30 years old. They stain, and the towel just helps prevent the stain from happening on my countertop. I know the red dye, if it stains your countertop, what does it do to your intestines? But I limit how much red dye we have, or try to limit anyway. Um, and the kids like these as a little snack. Sometimes after dinner, these little jelly jars are small enough that I can put one in my son's lunchbox, and he knows that he has something glass in there and not to, throw his lunchbox around. Um, but yeah, the Jello is a nice. It's inexpensive. It tastes pretty good. We get the sugar-free option. The kids, sometimes I'll put a little bit of Ready Whip or Cool Whip on top and make it like a little quote-unquote fancy dessert after dinner, and we all enjoy them. My husband doesn't really partake so much, but I'm realizing I probably should have stirred that when I added the cold water, but here I am putting new hot water in for the next batch and mixing it up and pouring it in. And then I realized that I did not add the cold water to the second batch. I just mixed it and started pouring. At this point, I had realized that I didn't add the cold water. I had to pour those 3 little jars back in, add the cold water, mix it, and then start again. As I go back to rewatch this video, to do the editing and the voiceover, I am finding that it's very satisfying to watch these little jars get filled up. I'm not sure why, but I don't know, it's very satisfying. I could watch it over and over again. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It's also nice to know that I have these pre-portioned out in the fridge, and the kids can just grab one, and there's no fighting over who got more and who got what. Everything's exactly the same, and it's nice to have. now I'm off to address my sourdough starter. It's been sitting on the counter. It's about room temperature now for an hour or so, 2 hours. And there's about a cup of starter in there, and I don't want to have to put a cup of flour in there to feed it. So I'm going to do what's called a discard, where you pour off or portion off a piece of your unfed starter, the starter that needs to be fed. I did it about half, so there's about half a cup there and half a cup in this bowl, and I'll put it off to the side and I'll show you what I do with that later on in the video. But now I don't have to put as much flour in my starter to feed it, and I don't need as much water. So when you feed your starter, you want to give it the same amount of starter, the same amount of flour, and the same amount of water, and mix it all together. And then you leave that, after it's been fed, with fresh water and flour on the counter to let it ferment and get active, and that's when it gets bubbly. So here I'm just mixing all that in. I like a little bit of a drier starter, and I'm trying to scrape the sides of the jar so you can see how thick it is. And then I just pop the lid, just set it right on top, and put it off to the side. So here I have my fed starter, my discard, my taco seasoning. Not sure if you can see that or not. That'll be enough for another meal. My pre-portioned nuts that are, handy dandy little containers. Leftover residual nuts because I didn't have enough containers. And then all of the Jello. This darker one is black cherry, and the first one is strawberry banana. The kids really like it. While I'm standing here, I'm realizing that my calendula oil is just calling my name. Needs to be just inverted a few times just to mix up and make sure nothing settles, everything's coated in the oil, and this should be ready to make soap with in the next few weeks. I have a few little extra flowers that are drying on top. Okay, now I'm turning my attention to making some dough for bread for the next day. My starter is active and bubbly. In this particular video, I'm using bread flour, but my normal recipe. My normal go-to recipe is 3 cups of flour, and here I'm using a half cup measuring cup, so it ends up being 6 scoops. But the recipe is 3 cups of flour, 1/2 cup of active bubbly sourdough starter, and a big hefty pinch of salt, with anywhere from a cup to a cup and 3/4 of water. I kind of just add the water in as I go along. Okay, I'm just adding a little bit more water. It's pretty dry. And then I work the dough in the bowl. A lot of people use their hands here, but I still prefer to use the spatula. I like to show you what the dough looks like. It's important to see what the dough looks like, how it works up in various kitchens by various bakers or chefs or just people who like to bake like me. And I'm realizing that I probably could have stopped there with the amount of water, but I did decide to add a little splash more, less than I did with the second adding. But I do put a little bit more in there, and then I decided not to speed up this footage of mixing the dough. It's important to see this. I found a lot of recipes or videos on bread making. They sped up this part, and it's important to see how the dough comes together. So after working it a little bit more, I become happy with the consistency, and then I set it aside, and I'll come back and do a stretch and fold in at least 30 minutes, probably a little longer. Okay, it's a little bit later on in the evening. My husband's off to work, and the kids and I are getting some dinner ready here. So I'm going to fry up this sourdough discard, and I want to make sure that that oil is hot in that pan before I put the discard in, and then we're going to fry it up. Okay, I'm just spreading the sourdough discard out in the pan and trying to get it to heat and fry evenly. I do scrape it up the sides a little bit, and you can see how it's cooking in the middle there. And I just kind of keep working it until it looks like it's mostly cooked through. And then here I do an epic epic fail with trying to flip it. It rips. Probably could have cooked a little bit longer before flipping, but it's okay. It still tasted great. It'll eat, right? So I just kind of keep after it once it's been flipped once, just to make sure it doesn't stick, doesn't start to burn, and then you just kind of want to toast it on either side at this point, and you're looking for some nice dark spots on it to let you know it's toasted, and that's when you know it's done and you can pull it off the cast iron. I like to enjoy my fried sourdough starter with a little bit of cream cheese, and I sprinkle some everything seasoning on it and enjoy it like a little flat fried bagel snack. It's delicious. Okay, I'm back at the dough doing some folding, not really stretching because I'm using the spatula, and this dough is pretty wet. I probably should not have added that last little bit of water, but here we are, just folding it, and I'll set it aside for the night. Okay guys, that's it for my snack video. Hope to catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye!